Love, the great, unrelenting force that has built civilizations, inspired poets, and driven men to madness. It is, at its core, the most fundamental desire of the human spirit. And yet, there exists a peculiar breed of individuals for whom love is both a dream and a nightmare, a longing and a threat, a prize they dare not hold too tightly. Yes, today we explore why avoidants push love away, a paradox as maddening as it is fascinating, as tragic as it is predictable. To love an avoidant is to experience an emotional sleight of hand, a magician's trick where closeness is an illusion and intimacy is an ever-receding horizon. Just when you think you have them, they vanish. Just when you believe the walls have come down, another barrier is erected. Why? Why do they run? Why do they sabotage the very thing they claim to want? Why, when presented with warmth, do they recoil as though burned? This is the enigma we shall unravel today. And perhaps, if we peer deeply enough into the labyrinth of their minds, we might find that the answer is not as mysterious as it seems. To understand why avoidants push love away, one must first grasp the fundamental contradiction at the heart of their nature. They want love, yet they fear it. They crave connection, yet they distrust it. They long for intimacy, yet they sabotage it. It is an internal war, a battle fought on the front lines of their psyche, where the heart yearns for closeness, but the mind, trained by years of self-preservation, deems it a danger. Many misunderstand avoidance, branding them as cold, unfeeling, or even cruel. But to view them this way is to miss the depth of their struggle. Their avoidance is not a choice, it is a reflex, a deeply ingrained survival mechanism formed in the earliest years of their lives. They do not flee love because they do not desire it. They flee because love threatens the one thing they hold most sacred: control. Imagine, if you will, a man who has spent his entire life ensuring his own survival. A man who has built his world around one unshakable truth: you can only rely on yourself. From a young age, he learned that vulnerability leads to disappointment, that asking for help results in rejection, that love is conditional, unpredictable, and ultimately, unreliable. So he adapts. He becomes self-sufficient, self-reliant, self-contained. And then one day, love arrives. It is soft, it is inviting, it is warm, and yet to him, it is a threat. Because love asks him to let go, to open up, to trust, to rely on another, and that is unacceptable. You see, avoidants regulate their emotions in a very particular way. While securely attached individuals turn to their loved ones for support, avoidants turn inward. Their world is one of strict routines, carefully managed solitude, and an almost militant control over their emotional landscape. To love means to risk disruption. Imagine a man whose emotional stability is built upon a series of carefully crafted rituals. He wakes at dawn, exercises, meditates, reads in solitude. Everything has its place, and within this structure, he feels safe. Now imagine he falls in love. His partner wants spontaneity, late-night conversations, unscheduled moments of closeness. To most, these are the hallmarks of romance. To an avoidant, they are threats to order. They begin to feel trapped, overwhelmed, like a caged animal pacing in a shrinking enclosure. And so, they push away. Not because they do not love, but because they do not know how to love without losing themselves in the process. The shadow of childhood wounds. But let us go deeper still. For avoidance is not merely a matter of habit. It is a scar, etched in childhood, buried beneath years of detachment. Somewhere in the past of every avoidant lies a moment, perhaps forgotten, where they learned that their emotions were not welcome. A boy who cries, only to be told to man up. A girl who seeks comfort, only to be met with silence. A child who expresses pain, only to be met with indifference. And so they learn. They learn that emotions are dangerous, that vulnerability invites rejection, that love is conditional, and closeness is a gamble they cannot afford to lose. They adapt by becoming islands unto themselves. By the time they reach adulthood, the lesson is so deeply embedded that they no longer question it. Love feels good, yes, but too much of it? Suffocating. And so they keep their partners at arm's length. They pull away when things become too warm. They seek out relationships that are doomed from the start, long-distance lovers, emotionally unavailable partners, impossible romances, because these allow them to experience love without ever having to truly risk it. For to be loved is to be seen. To be seen is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to be at risk. But how do they push love away? How do they dismantle something they themselves once sought? The answer lies in something called deactivation strategies, mental escape routes that allow avoidants to justify their withdrawal. Perhaps you have seen these strategies in action. They focus on your imperfections. Suddenly, the person they once adored becomes flawed beyond repair. She's too emotional. He's too needy. They're just not the right person for me. They romanticize the past. An ex-lover becomes an impossible standard. I'll never find someone like them. They flirt with others, seeking attraction without attachment. They refuse to commit. The relationship remains stagnant, always on the edge of something real, yet never quite crossing the threshold. They withdraw in moments of happiness. Just when things seem perfect, they go silent, disappear, distance themselves as if intimacy itself is a crime. These are not conscious acts of cruelty. They are shields. Armor forged in childhood, worn into adulthood, wielded against the very thing they desire most. Can an avoidant ever change? Now here is where many of you lean forward, hearts hopeful. You wish to know, can they change? The answer is complicated. Avoidants do not choose to be this way. They were made this way, shaped by circumstances beyond their control. But can they unmake themselves? Can they rewrite the script of their attachment? Theoretically, yes. But here's the brutal truth. They must want to change, and change requires something avoidants struggle with: vulnerability. It requires them to sit with their discomfort rather than running from it. It requires them to acknowledge that independence is not the same as strength. It requires them to trust, even when every fiber of their being warns them not to. And that is no small thing. Some do it. Some find themselves in relationships where patience and understanding allow them to slowly, painfully, unlearn the fears of their past. Others remain trapped, locked in an endless loop of longing and retreat. And so, dear listener, if you love an avoidant, I offer you this. It is not your job to fix them. You cannot love them into security. You cannot chase them into commitment. You cannot force them to change. What you can do is understand, and in that understanding you must decide, is this the love you can live with? For some, the answer will be yes. For others, no. But if there is one truth I leave you with, it is this: an avoidant does not push love away because they do not want it. They push it away because deep down, they fear that if they let it in, they will never survive its loss.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.